welcome back to the Huddle Up Podcast. It is the 5 Observations with Big Jim. I am your host, Big Jim. You can hear me as well as the Huddle Up Podcast team every Tuesday night live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube on our on Huddle Up Podcast. We are live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, talking all things football each and every Tuesday night through the football season. So that'll be continuing for at least the next about month to 6 weeks, and then we move into what we call our off-season program, but more on that as we get closer to that time frame. We are back here for another 5 observations. Make sure you're following along with us if you are not already. Facebook and Twitter at Huddle Up Podcast. Hit the link tree where you'll be able to find us on Anchor, on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and our merchandise over at tpublic.com. I just want to thank everybody for being understanding. I didn't get a 5 observations in last week because the Christmas holiday fell over the weekend and just got a little bit too busy and was not able to get that taken care of. So appreciate the support on that one. A little house cleaning for this week. There will not be a 5 for Fighting NHL podcast due to the holidays and just some extenuating circumstances. Mikey B will not get his 5 items from the National Hockey League this week, so that should be returning to the podcast feed next week. If you have not checked out this week's N1 with EJ, get caught up on the NBA action. You can do that. So make sure you are subscribed to the feed so you never miss anything Huddle Up related. Before I get into the observations this week, as you are listening to this, it is New Year's Eve, and I just want to thank not only the team, the Huddle Up Podcast team that we've put together here at Huddle Up Podcast Incorporated, from myself, Sean, Dave, who I know have not been as active this year. Life has kept them busy. But the guys that I do this with each and every week, Kyle, Matt, EJ, Mike for tuning in and being a loyal listener and stat keeper for us, and now as a contributor to the weekly podcast feed as well. I can't thank them enough, and we also can't thank you, the supporters of Huddle Up Podcast, enough for what has been our most productive year to date. We have produced more content in 2022 than ever before, and I have no doubt that 2023 is going to yield the same, if not more, as we have some more like irons in the fire and have some things cooking for the upcoming year. So again, I thank each and every one of you for all of the support in 2022, and Happy New Year as we look forward to midnight hitting later tonight. And a whole new year kicking off, and then we will have our first live show of 2023 this Tuesday night. So make sure you are following along and subscribed so you do not miss a minute of that. All right, let's get into the 5 observations. My first observation for this week. We're in the midst of college bowl season, and congratulations to my Notre Dame Fighting Irish for a huge come-from-behind victory in the Gator Bowl today against, as I'm recording this today, or as you're listening to it yesterday, or when on let's say on December the 30th, against South Carolina to cap off a great, what ended up being a really great first season for Marcus Freeman, 9-4 after starting 0-2. So a great. A great way to close out the year with a win. Looking forward to next year. But with this bowl season, in previous years, we've had bad takes in regards to players leaving, players transferring, players opting out of bowl games because they're headed to the NFL and they don't want to risk injury. But this year, now with the transfer portal, it has gotten even crazier. So, but some of the takes that I have seen from people in sports media and everything has been absolutely insane. One in particular, Josh Roundtree, he's a sports reporter out of Pittsburgh, works KDKA and other media outlets in Pittsburgh. So covers Pitt Panthers and other sports. He is mad at Coastal Carolina players, and I caught this one the other day because they announced they're leaving, they're transferring at year's end, but they are still playing in the bowl game. And man, this is a new one. This is a new one for me that I don't understand, because over the years we've heard the takes of, like, if a guy is headed to the NFL, and actually my wife and I went out to Buffalo Wild Wings for dinner tonight to watch a Notre Dame game, and one of the managers, I guess, is a Notre Dame fan, came up and was talking to me, and he's like, man, I just hate that our tight end and these guys, they leave. If you get a scholarship and you're playing, you should play out and play the bowl game. And I'm like, you know what? Like, look, they're not in the playoff, okay? They're not playing for a national championship. Like, if a guy who is leaving doesn't want to risk his career for an injury in a game that he deems not meaningless, but it's the risk reward, okay? Like, if he doesn't want to put the risk out there for himself, I don't blame him. And I used to not think. I used to be like, man, you should play out. You should play out. You've been with this team all year. You've been with this team for years. You should finish what you started. But the more and more I think about it, man, these guys are getting chewed up and spit out. And if because he was talking specifically about Michael Mayer. If Michael Mayer goes out in this game and gets hurt, blows out an ACL, he's going to go from a potential top 10 pick to 4th round, 5th round. The monetary hit that he takes, the potential for re-injury or not making a full recovery and stuff like that, it's not worth it. Like, I'm happy Notre Dame won today. And I'm proud of the players that played. But if they didn't want to, I'm fine with them not playing. So if a kid leaves early and sits out, he's bad, right? And that's what guys like Josh Roundtree are saying. That these kids are bad. They're abandoning their team. They're abandoning their school. Well, so if a kid transfers, they're bad, right? Because, like, you should commit. You should stay committed to the school that you signed on to play for. Pardon my squeaky microphone stand. So you should finish the job and finish where you played for, right? But what happens when, say, Brian Kelly just decides after signing a contract extension the year prior that he's going to leave Notre Dame and go to LSU? We don't hold coaches accountable, right? Like, when coaches leave all the time to take different jobs, better jobs. Deion Sanders left Jackson State, now at Colorado. You know, guys leave all the time. Luke Fickell left Cincinnati, now at Wisconsin. We don't hold coaches to this same level of commitment. These guys go sit in high school kids' houses and tell them that you're going to come play for me at this school, and then a year later I'm leaving. I'm going to a better school. I'm going to a different school. I'm taking a different job. I'm advancing my career. But hey, you have to stay here at that school, right? No, that doesn't add up. So if kids transfer, they're bad. And again, if they leave early and don't play the bowl game because they're going to the NFL, that's bad too. So now, let me see if I understand this. A kid who's transferring but decides to play the bowl game is also bad, because he has put on the shirt of another school and announced he's leaving there for next year, but he wants to finish out this year with the team he's played with this year, and now that's bad. Man, that does not add up to me. That does not add up to me. Let these kids do what they need to do to try to end up in the NFL or advancing their playing career professionally. Let them do what they need to do under the parameters that are set by college football. Like, if a coworker that you work with is leaving your job to take a new job or a better job or something that fits their life better, but they make their plan, they say they're going to leave, and they're finishing out, their final month or their final 2 weeks. Do you hate that coworker? Do you resent him or her or them? Do you chastise that coworker? Why are you even here? Why are you here? You're just abandoning us. No. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Because for some reason we think that we have no problem with adults leaving from job to job to job to make their life better. But for some reason people have problem with college kids doing that. I feel like we should have more problem with adults doing it. If we're going to have a problem with anybody doing it, which we shouldn't, I feel like you should have more problem with adults doing it over kids. People like Josh Roundtree are an embarrassment to sports media. And we need to break this mindset of kids, quote unquote, needing to stay where they committed. Until we hold coaches, administrators, any other staff to the same set of rules and standards that you want to set for a college kid who is trying to better themselves personally and professionally. My second observation this week, Mike Vrabel does not give a flying you-know-what about your fantasy football team. And he shouldn't, okay? Last night, the Cowboys played the Titans, and there was, I think, 13 or 14 Titan starters that were held out of that game because last night's game did not matter to the Titans. Titans win, Titans tie, Titans lose. Doesn't matter. Because if the Titans win next week against Jacksonville, they win their division. If the Titans lose to the Cowboys, which they did, they win next week, win the division. Lose next week, don't win the division, probably miss the playoffs. So why would you put people at risk? Why would you put Derrick Henry at risk? Why would you put anyone that is questionable or needed for next week? Why put them at risk? Fans, I think, forget that teams play for the playoffs and the Super Bowl and not for their fantasy points, not for their betting lines, and any of that. But Mike Vrabel does not and should not give a damn about fantasy football. And honestly, I think we're probably going to see more of this in the coming years as, like, if you have a big game week 18 that is, that the results matter, but week 17 doesn't, I think you're going to see more coaches start to do this. Third observation this week. It has been a rough year for great quarterbacks in the National Football League. This week we saw Derek Carr benched by the Raiders. He has also left the Raiders with their permission to not be a distraction. The obvious prevailing belief is that he is not going to be a Raider next year. He will land somewhere else. If I had to put, like, the three teams that I think he will end up with, or at least sitting here right now that I think he'll end up with, Saints, Washington, New York Jets. Three teams that have plenty of potential if you have a great quarterback. I know a lot of people have been thinking San Francisco, but I'm not sure if San Francisco takes that financial responsibility on, especially with Trey Lance will be healthy next year. Do you run with Brock Purdy or at least keep him as your backup? But Derek Carr benched in Oakland. What a mess. What a mess that has been. A year after people were putting him in the MVP race, right? And now benched by the Raiders. Russell Wilson. We've talked at length about Russell Wilson throughout this season. On the Huddle podcast, but just a terrible year for him, a terrible year for the Denver Broncos. Oh, the Denver Broncos. He's going to get another chance, as we talked about on Huddle podcast this week. And yes, Kyle Nash, student of the game, bing. He's going to get another chance because they signed him to a huge contract. He should, let's be honest, also get another chance with a different head coach in Denver because Russell Wilson has always been great. We're going to find out next year. Was this year because of Jeff Hackett? Jeff Hackett, right? Who couldn't hack it? Ba-ding. Or is Russell a quote-unquote system quarterback? Has he hit the wall and we're just at the end of his career? We'll find out. Ayahuasca Rodgers. Excuse me, Aaron Rodgers. It's been an up and down year. Him and the Packers have been surging as of late, still alive in the playoff race. But this has not been a great year for Aaron Rodgers. Professionally, personally, and who knows where he's going to be next year, if he's going to be in the NFL. But this has not been a great Aaron Rodgers year. All his fault? No, I don't think it is. But he's also at fault for some of the struggles with Green Bay this year. And Tom Brady. Look, whether it's Father Time finally catching up to Tom Brady and proving that he is but a mere mortal like all of us, or if it's just Tampa's that big of a dumpster fire. I don't know. If you have to ask me today, I think Tom Brady plays next year still. But I don't think it's in Tampa. Maybe he's in San Francisco. Maybe he's in. Maybe he goes back to New England. Maybe they're not sold on Mac Jones. But I don't think. Maybe he's in Oakland. Oakland, Las Vegas. And he's a Raider next year. But I don't think he's a Buccaneer. I think he is done with that organization. Quite frankly, I think that organization is done with him. They need to move on. They need, with the new coaching staff and everything, I think they need to turn the page and decide what the future is going to be for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My fourth observation this week, for multiple reasons, this has been a December to remember for the Washington Capitals. It starts with Alexander Ovechkin. He became the third player in NHL history to reach 800 goals in his career. He then tied Gordie Howe at 801 goals in his career for second place all time. He then, in the same night, passed Gordie Howe with his 802nd career goal in his NHL career to become in solo possession of second place. And just the other night, he has hit goal 803. So obviously only the second player in NHL history with 803 goals in his career. But on top of that, the Washington Capitals have gone 10-2-2 in the month of December this year. They went from kind of being an afterthought in the National Hockey League to right back in contention. They have one more game later today, 4 o'clock Eastern time, against the Montreal Canadiens to close out the month. But they went from out of a playoff spot to third place in their division this month. I was very critical of Peter Laviolette in the early portion of this season. I didn't think that injuries and illnesses or anything like that were an excuse for how the team was performing. And I called for Laviolette to be fired. So I will admit on this show that I was wrong, because I will give Peter Laviolette a ton of credit for getting this team playing, because they are still beat up. This team is still in injury hell. Okay, to date, the Washington Capitals, through December the 28th, have lost. Let me find it here. 248 man games lost to injury in this game or in this season. That is the most out of any team in the NHL this year. And what Laviolette is doing with this team has been nothing short of incredible. So I will apologize publicly, not that he'll probably ever hear it, but I will apologize publicly to one Peter Laviolette. And hopefully this trend can continue to run and the Caps will continue to play well. It's also been impressive for the Capitals AHL farm team, the Hershey Bears, who are half an hour from where I live, because they have had their roster ravaged by the Washington Capitals, who have needed players from Hershey to complete the NHL roster. Hershey has been surging this month and all through the season. They currently sit 22-6-2-1 on the year. They are first place in the American Hockey League. So just tremendous work by the teams in the Capitals organization for managing what has been a difficult first half of the 2022-2023 season, and hopefully the success continues to roll in on the back half here. My fifth and final observation this week: Kirk Herbstreit sucks. And I don't understand why people exalt this guy so much as like the master and savior of sports broadcasting in football. I have had my issues with him for a couple of years with college. He comes off as an arrogant prick. He's a homer for Ohio State in the Big Ten, and whatever ESPN wants him to be a fan of, the SEC, the ACC, it doesn't matter. He is a corporate stooge in the sports world. When it comes to college football, and then last night, again as I'm recording this, is a late Friday night, so Thursday night football. For those that don't know me and don't know what I do podcasting wise, I host a wrestling podcast every Thursday night, 3 Count Thursday. So if you haven't checked us out, please do if you're a wrestling fan. But this, I took the week off this week, and I was able to watch the Cowboys Titans, and so it's the first time I've seen the Al Michaels Kirk Herbstreit pairing. Herbstreit sounds so bored and uninterested. He seems clueless. He keeps trying to talk about it as if it's a college game. And I mean, honestly, it's not really his fault. He's a college football broadcaster, right? But he sounds like he's mailing it in. And look, it could be my bias. I don't really like Herbstreit to begin with, so maybe I'm looking at him the wrong way. If you think I'm judging him harshly, at least in terms of the NFL stuff, you can tweet at me at Big Jim Sports, at the show at Huddle Up Podcast. But man, it's brutal, and I feel, honest to God, I feel bad for Al Michaels. That this is likely. I don't know if Al Michaels is going to retire this year, next year, a couple of years, whatever. and a sad day in sports broadcasting that will be when he does. But that he could end his prolific Hall of Fame worthy career with Herb Street, just Michaels doesn't even sound the same because he doesn't have a great partner next to him. Look, Chris Collinsworth sucks, but he and Michaels had a better rapport with each other. It doesn't feel that way with Herb Street, and maybe it's because he's too busy, because he's doing game day and he's doing college football and he's doing this and he's doing the weekly playoff program on ESPN, and there's just maybe he's stretched too thin. But he's not good. The Thursday night football, like it's not good. I'm thankful that this was the only week I had to watch it and could really listen to it this year. But that's going to do it for me. I'm going to wrap up here, and I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Thank you again for all of your support. Subscribe to the show if you're not already, all podcast platforms. Follow us on social media at Huddle Up Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, and youtube.com/@Huddle Up Podcast. Critical, you get that extra at in there. But youtube.com/@Huddle Up Podcast. Subscribe, tell your friends about it, please. Word of mouth can continue to help this grow. If you subscribe to us on a podcast platform where you can rate and review us, please do that as well. We would certainly appreciate that. Again, thank you to Mike Team. Thank you to the guys who helped me do this show. Thank you to all of you for listening and supporting us. We had a tremendous 2022. I can't wait to see what 2023 brings. But until we talk to you next, which will be this Tuesday, live, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Until then, stay safe, stay smart, Happy New Year, and go for the win.